Hello,
Hi.
and welcome to our season finale.
Yay!
Now with Christmas decorations.
It's here. Christmas is here.
Christmas is here.
It's been like 3 months.
Yeah, it's been 3 months.
That's a long time since we started doing this podcast.
During this podcast, there was bumps in the roads.
I feel like
Definitely bumps in
I
the
should
roads.
tell you, by the way,
Yeah.
the need to know.
Yeah.
I
Go
went
on.
to my Thanksgiving dinner this weekend, and my
Yeah.
aunt and uncle were like, "Oh, it's the YouTuber Kalani," and I'm like, "I'm just helping out a friend.
Yeah.
I'm just here, okay? I didn't do anything."
Next thing you know, I'll bring you in as a permanent host, and then you start your own segment,
Oh,
and then you spawn
God.
off into like another thing.
If I were to ever do a show,
Yeah.
it would mainly consist of me panicking about finishing all of my projects for school.
It'll be a college blog.
Oh my god, honestly, probably.
Okay, so I'm not with our little chit chat here. Some ground not ground rules, just some housekeeping. Please subscribe, ring that bell. Have some interaction. If you don't like my opinions about this anime, go right ahead because I'm pretty sure people.
I mean, it'd be interesting to read different
Yeah.
viewpoints about certain things anyway, so.
Yeah, if you remember earlier, the 2 previous episodes, I was like iffy about My Hero, and then now I'm sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm sold.
But
So-
this is like the solidifying.
Yeah, so I'm going. So that's what I wanted to say about the whole intro thing, and then this is our last episode for this season, but this does not mean this is the end of the series. So,
Mhm.
if you have an anime in mind, please put that in the comments, or if no one says anything, I guess I can choose.
Choosing is also very much an option.
Yeah, me choosing. That's what I have in my mind right now. What else? What else am I thinking? We're also gonna do a Christmas special.
Yay!
So we're gonna do a Christmas special, and we're gonna talk about Christmas anime. So maybe some Christmas special anime. We might talk about movies, and we're gonna talk about maybe some Christmas stuff that relates to anime, if we have any memories specific to anime.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So
Christmas memories.
yeah, definitely. So that's what we're gonna talk about next time. Expect that in and around Christmas time.
hmm
And our second season won't be coming out until sometime maybe mid to end of January.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not even going to be here in January.
Oh, you're not?
Nah.
Ooh.
You might have to do some solo episodes.
I might have to do some solo episodes, or maybe call up somebody else.
Definitely do that.
I think I might get that. Maybe we could get some Calvin action.
Variety!
That sounds weird. Okay, I'm gonna maybe get some of my other friends here, and we could talk about anime a little bit.
Yeah.
And so hopefully till then we'll figure that out. But until then, without further ado, we're going to talk about My Hero Academia and the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this episode, all right. Something I forgot to mention on our last episode is that All Might beats up that giant bird character,
The
the Nomu, beats him out of the arena. And now it's just kind of like wrapping up these stories, these storylines, and these bad guy characters. Okay, so All Might, halfway through this episode, All Might is trying to get the bad guys on this bluff of like, I just did this to Nomu, I could do this still.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad guys are like freaking out. Like the guy that has all the hands all over him, he's just like, I underestimated him. He's like, all the information I heard is that he's not powerful anymore, and like this happened. But I think the guy who teleports other people.
I forgot his name.
Yeah, I forget. Well, we're doing this right after Thanksgiving break, so it's been a week since we've done this.
We've all been heading about other
Yeah.
things.
And so his partner in crime is also still trying to tell him, hey, calm down. He might still be weak, you know what I mean? But during that altercation, they make their move to try to hit All Might. Deku, our homeboy, tried to punch him, and then with a combo attack from bad guys, he teleports the guy with the hands all over his face or whatever to try to catch Deku, but lo and behold, McCree comes in. Not McCree.
The almost McCree.
The anime McCree. Just kidding.
He basically is.
Basically.
His name is Pro Hero Snipe.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about this last week. I think I was getting my episodes mixed up, but I was just like, Western character. I may consider cosplaying him one day. But he looks like an awesome character. Literally, as you know, Deus Ex Machina moment, like all these characters come in the nick of time. Deku's saved. All the bad guys who can get away got away. All the people that got beat up, gets their comeuppance. So all in all, this episode kind of ends in that kind of note of, oh, like everything works out, but it being a whole series and there's 3 seasons of this, and not including this season that we're finishing up. There's storylines that's gonna jump into the next season. So we're gonna figure out who is the head honcho bad guy. At least it was alluded that there's another person pulling the strings other than hand-faced dude and portal dude.
Yeah.
There's more to this evil organization than meets the eye. So hopefully in the second season we'll get a little taste of that.
I think the best way to explain the second season is like there will be like a rise of different villain characters, but there's one in particular that is the catalyst for the villain activity to progress further than what it is.
Okay. Well, that's to be seen. We see all the other heroes. I don't think they're part of the school. Not necessarily. I don't think so. Are they? So all the heroes that come in the nick of time, like the Deus Ex Machina moment.
They're all actual heroes.
They're all actual heroes. But my idea was all UA teachers though.
I believe a majority of them are, yeah.
Okay. So they come in with the principal, and the principal being the nice mini bear mouse thing. He's awesome. If I when I go to Japan in January, I'm gonna see if there's a plushie of the principal.
You should do it.
I should definitely bring it, but I won't bring it back.
I feel like it's kind of a necessary requirement. Like either you buy the principal or you buy Ida.
Ida? Oh yeah, Ida. Yeah, you definitely take it. If I get an Ida statue that his helmet can come off and back on, I could definitely get that.
That would be pretty cool.
You know, like an Ida.
I didn't know if they make like figures with the helmet on, because everyone knows him with his helmet off.
That's fair.
But his like full on like hero suit is like.
Yeah, and I've seen it before too. Like I think the training episodes where they were going through the building and stuff and like role playing.
He looks really good.
He looks really good. It reminds me of Gundam.
Honestly, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like inspiration.
And kind of reminds me. There was this. What was it? Fooly Cooly? No, I don't think so. But there was this other anime. It could have been like Cowboy Bebop or something sci-fi where it was like a fluorescently colored Gundam character, but it wasn't Gundam related. I know for a fact it's not Gundam, but I think it could have been Fooly Cooly. I'm just not sure. I just know that it would look like giant robot anime, and so yeah, I hope to like go to I have a trip to Japan in January, but I hope in Japan that anime store that's like 5 or 6 stories. It's like literally the Enter the Dragon, where each level is like a different form of anime, and the top level is all like the crazy stuff.
Get me a souvenir, please. Or photos. I can live with photos.
yeah. We're gonna do a lot. Well, at least I hope so. I'm very positive about this trip too. So yeah. Anyway, so tangent. It's gonna still talk about the episode. And then like literally the aftermath. All the students are talking to the authorities. All the students are trying to figure out how's everybody. So we figure out that Aizawa is alright to a degree. Like he's been very badly injured, but he's at the hospital recovering. We hear that 13 is also recovering. And also, the weird thing is, the suit is on the side, and then somebody's on the bed. I thought the suit was the person.
Nope.
Nope. There's somebody in the suit. So I didn't realize that. So there's that.
I mean, I feel like it could be like similar to like
I thought it was like an android character for a while. I was just like, oh, this is like some kind of hero.
It's a
android.
person.
It's a person
I mean,
in there. Okay.
I feel like the similarity would be maybe like if a character like I don't remember her name, the invisible one.
Oh, the invisible one.
If
Oh,
she
okay.
were to have like a suit, but like that kind of like defeats the purpose of her quirk because she's supposed to be.
She's supposed to be invisible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 13's all right. I hesitate to say she.
It's a she.
It's a she?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was like, I didn't want to assume because at the beginning I was just like, oh, I just assumed it was a robot or whatever. So I was just like, whatever it wanted to be identified, I was just gonna leave it as that.
It's a she.
It's a she. Deku is all right. He has those issues of whenever he uses the power, he gets disabled in some way, and then All Might is recovering next to Deku, but learning something new. The police chief or the person that works with the heroes to some degree know All Might's issues.
Need correction. Their gender is unknown.
Their gender is unknown? Oh, okay. So it's good I didn't assume.
Yeah, I thought for some reason I heard somewhere it was a girl.
It was a female voice actor, but my assumptions were like it was like kind of like an android robot situation, so I didn't want to kind of impose that whole.
According to the official wiki,
Yeah.
it is unknown.
Unknown. Okay. All right. Cool. Fair play.
But go on.
There was like this other character that was like a cat dude or cat lady.
I think they were also working the police force.
Yeah. He or she. I didn't really get 100% on it, and that's my dryer. I didn't get a 100% understanding of what the voice was, but I just thought, okay, their quirk is that they're a cat.
Yeah.
Literally a cat person.
Maybe
So-
they have like affinity towards things that cats do.
I guess so,
Like,
maybe.
Maybe they always land on all fours.
Or maybe they have like a heightened sense of smell. They could sniff
Yeah.
out crime.
Or fish.
Or fish. If there's a robbery at Tuna, like he just like,
I smell a
it's this way. It's this way. I was like, I know that smell. That's bluefin tuna, and it's down the street this way.
I also smell the hint of tuna and maybe salmon.
Yeah, it's being cooked right now, and I know it. So, we had that situation earlier. Circling back, the villains have their little time. Hand-faced dude.
What's his name?
What's his name? But
I'm gonna find out right
yeah,
now.
please do. Before he becomes all. I'm gonna maybe before the next season, I'm gonna have like a chart, like a Game of Thrones-esque chart of like people and relationships.
The guy who has the warping quirk is Kurogiri.
Kurogiri.
Kurogiri. And the guy with the hands, his name is Shigaraki.
Shigaraki?
Shigaraki Tamura.
Shigaraki Tamura. Okay. So.
Or Tamura Shigaraki.
Oh, okay. So he has a very interesting not complex, but like thing. Whenever he feels like he's cornered, he starts itching his neck or something.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's part of his storyline or maybe just character design. But I just find that a little bit interesting. I want to see a little bit more of that. They run back to a bar, and apparently Kurogiri is a bartender, I guess.
I mean, it explains his outfit.
Suppose so, yeah. And like where they teleport back to. And there's a mysterious person talking through a TV through static or something. So hopefully next season we'll figure out what's going on and with all these things. Hopefully I'm not missing anything, but by the end of this episode you kind of get like a good montage of like Deku's came a long way and stuff like that, and like all these like different storylines felt deserved.
Yep.
Yeah, they all felt kind of deserved in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we could just move on to our next discussion about like how like my final impressions of like this first season. I actually do enjoy this anime. Like through and through. There was a rocky moment where I was just kind of like thinking, are we just having a bully kind of storyline for the sake of Deku to have a bully storyline? But I thought, well, if this character is gonna have some redeeming qualities later, like I'm willing to suspend my disbelief of like having a bully story, because I felt like Deku trying to understand his quirk and him going through the school process was a good enough story for me, and I thought maybe the whole Bakugo thing could have been like toned down a little bit. But overall, like by the end of the season, I felt like Bakugo wasn't the problem. It was probably me having those.
I want to vouch for Bakugo so badly.
But you gotta wait until I actually see those episodes.
Can you just like skip through it and just watch everything really fast, and then we can just make the episode for it after you watch it?
I actually started watching the first episode of the second season, but I figured out the first episode of the second season was like a episode 1.13.5.
I really want you to get through the second season because it has one of my favorite arcs from the show.
Okay, well,
I think it's the second season actually. I'm gonna double check that.
Please do. But this whole season, as a setup of the world's limitations, I felt like I really 100% feel like this show is grounded to its kind of lore, to its own rules, and I feel like if it's only for that, I'm definitely invested in this show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just like how I mentioned before, like in Game of Thrones, like the first season, it was well said, and like travel means something. People going from one place to another means something. The talk between characters means something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's a lot of means in that. Yeah, in that sentence. But when a world kind of owns up to its own rules and play by those rules, then like I feel like that I can be with these characters. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you remember my whole gripe about Dragon Ball? Like they literally whatever the next bad, they just heighten the power level. You know what I mean? Mm. And I felt like there was okay. Well, at what point Goku just becomes a person that just kills a god? You know what I mean? Mm.
I don't know if I want to explain this because it kind of has to do a lot with like the character development later. I'll leave it up to you whether or not you allow me to, if you don't mind hearing it.
Okay.
I think this one particular character that I was mentioning earlier that kind of is the catalyst for everybody in the villain universe of everything. Mm-hmm. He doesn't necessarily have a lot of power per se, but his mindset is very different from a lot of the other villains that are currently in the show, and because of his mindset or like his beliefs, mm-hmm. it changes the perspective of all the villains in the rest of My Hero.
All the villains, he becomes like the rallying cry for these characters.
Like he becomes like this very, how do I explain this? It's like a.
I think I remember you mentioned that there was going to be a character that's a villain, but his arc doesn't necessarily the way his philosophy is. You could see it as a way that he's not a villain, but the way he's doing these actions makes him a villain. You know, like you mentioned Black Panther's character, Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger. Mm-hmm. That the villain has legitimate qualms, legitimate problems that like mm-hmm. the society has put upon him. Mm-hmm. But the way he's going about those problems mm-hmm. makes him a villain. Mm-hmm. So it's like these villain characters with depth. You know what I mean? Like mm-hmm. Thanos has his form of like what drives him, and like his idea was he's doing these things because he knows that the alternative destroyed his planet, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so this is the way that he's going to go about doing it.
Yeah.
And if you watch Infinity War as Thanos is the good guy, you start seeing all the other people as their own weird way of being a villain, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because he's set in his way of his world the universe is going to be fixed if I were to do this, you know what I mean? So
I think that's very much the same philosophy that this character in particular goes through.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that makes him such an integral character in My Hero is that his mindset is the one reason why every other villain's mindset or like a good majority of the villains' mindsets start to change.
Okay.
Because then they look at that and they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense as a reason as to why this needs to happen type thing.
That's interesting. I wonder if would it be spoilery if I just try to suss out which character it is?
You don't know them.
Oh, they're not even in this?
No.
I thought I had a little taste of it because there was that monologue that the guy with the hand on his face had at the very beginning of the episode 11 was that you see us as villains and like we want to change all that and like why do we have to be called bad guy, to some degree.
He has not come out yet.
He has not come out yet. Okay. All right. Well then. Well.
I feel like you'll like his character design. He's very interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have any questions about me and how I took this season? I felt very positive. Like my sort of trajectory was the first 3 episodes was kind of like getting up there. I was just like, I'm all about this. If this is my workout anime, like I love this. And then it started to kind of peter off after the whole he gets into UA and stuff like that, and you start to get to learn all these characters, right? And I was just like, I'm very interested. I want to see where this goes. And then the whole Bakugo thing started. I was like, seriously, Bakugo? Like, what is your beef with Deku? You kind of got a little bit of it, like some backstory. I felt like maybe. If I were to say it from this season, I felt like Bakugo feels like he wants to be the most powerful, hero, but I think he's also afraid to some degree. I think there might be something where he doesn't want Deku to die because of, like, he doesn't have quirk and he's, like, in over his head in this situation. Maybe he has good intentions, but he goes about bullying it. But I also feel like maybe there's some expectations and stuff. Like, maybe there's, like, a bad home environment that he's probably going through. But at the same time, like, Ida has a lot of, family history of, like, being like, a very good hero and stuff like that. And, like, there's, like, family legacy to it. And he's trying to live up to it. So I can't necessarily say that it's going to be family issues. But to be fair, like, each family can deal with trauma or deal with expectations in their own specific way. So that's to be seen.
Without going into it too much, I think Bakugo's main thing isn't necessarily like fear per se. I think it's holding himself to a standard.
Okay. I do kind of get this. I do feel the idea that he has some expectations. I feel like what you just said. Like there's that,
I think it's more so though not how others see him, but how he sees himself. My main couple of questions, by the way, as a kind of like a forethought, I really do want you to start season 2 though, because it starts the beginning of my favorite arc.
Okay.
Which is the sports festival arc.
Oh, okay. So there's some kind of sports festival? How would so my question is, how would a sports festival with a bunch of heroes be?
It's very interesting. You get introduced into a lot of different characters that are a part of UA. You also get introduced to my favorite character.
Okay.
So you'll understand why I like him, but
okay.
It's a really good arc that they have in the story, along with the arc that comes right after that, which is really, really good.
I hope now, before I start that season, I'm gonna start on a little information, like an infographic of like all these characters, because I'm terrible with names.
We should totally do that. I want to do one right now. Just like set it up and be like, hey, okay, this is what the characters are.
Bakugo, Dick to Deku, line this way. All Might, top guy. And it's like all these were like red strings on the board, and it's just like top guy, mystery.
Everything is just wrapped around. And stuff.
Wrapped around. It's just like it's like Charlie and Always Sunny. It's just like there's a conspiracy here.
I have a question. Do you have an opinion on the impact of All Might as a character. Because in this episode, we see him standing, right? He's already kind of like broken down from fighting the Nomu and stuff like that.
Yeah, and all the steam was coming off of him and stuff like
But,
that,
like,
which is also a pretty epic kind of like
the fight, right?
like image, you know, like him like beating up Nomu and all that stuff. But
I mean, specifically though, that one part where he's like standing there, but he's like on the verge of changing back, but he's still holding up and stuff like that. He knows he can't do anything, but he's bluffing, and yet his bluff beats out their trust in him being very weak.
yeah, because when they teleport the guy away from the situation, when like that moment where everybody comes in, like the bartender ghost dude teleport the guy, Kugiri, it's like saying like, dude, you got shot a bunch of times, but you didn't notice. All Might didn't budge an inch, and that little kid is much more faster. So there's something up here. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you have an opinion on like All Might's like impact in the show or anything like that? Or
I feel like he might be a Dumbledore character to some degree. Like I feel like he's gonna be a mentor or like a Obi-Wan Kenobi situation, like a Ben Kenobi situation, where he's gonna have a big impact in the next couple seasons, but at some point, as an audience member or as somebody that kind of sees this on like a filmatic way, like he's probably gonna kick the bucket. I'm gonna expect it to some degree, but like if it happens, I hope there's gonna be like Deku's gonna go through it, the principal's gonna go through it, like trying to figure out the aftermath of like someone like All Might passing away. You know, like when all of these characters are like, this is like the epitome of like a hero or like a god or something like that, or like I'm gonna save everybody. Like this is a person that everybody idolizes, and then dealing with somebody passing like that, I feel like he might be a Dumbledore kind of character, and like Deku's like the Harry Potter or like the Luke Skywalker in this situation of like he's gonna have to deal with that aftermath of All Might. But I think All Might as a character though, like he's kind of setting up like kind of the rules of what Deku's power is gonna be. But and my hope is to some degree I want him to explain as much as possible, but at the same time like I don't know if I want to know all that much, because I feel like Deku needs to figure out some of those powers on his own too. And I think he mentioned it before, like he needs to control that power because it could tear him apart. You know what I mean? Like he's been disabled many times trying to use his power. You know what I mean? So, and he's only starting to grab a sense of what his power can do. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. That's my long-winded idea about All Might. I don't think he's a bad character per se. From the very first episode, I thought, oh, it's like a take on the the person behind the hero. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it turns out you meet your idol and he's not what 100% he was, but it kind of transcend that sort of expectation of like, oh, he's not the hero that we expected, but he's now a character that, oh, he's become a mentor and teacher and someone that actually 100% believes in what Deku does. You know what I mean? The first couple episodes, I was like, is he just kind of like egging him on or something? You know, because it's kind of like one of the Karate Kid moments of like the 1980s Karate Kid, where it's like the kid doesn't understand the whole wax on, wax off thing. It's like doesn't understand like why he's doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? That's why that connection there.
I will spoil this for you though.
Oh God!
I don't mind getting spoiled.
Okay.
In season 2, the number 2 hero gets introduced. So the person right under All Might.
Person right under All Might. Okay.
His name is Endeavor.
Endeavor. Okay. I thought number 2 was the principal, but then again, I thought they're putting a mystery behind. Yeah. Okay.
But
all right.
Endeavor, his character design is really cool. He has like flames on his eyes.
Wait, flames on it. Is he like the exact opposite of Kugiri? Kugiri? Is he like the exact opposite of Kugiri?
His quirk isn't related to warping at all. It's
okay.
fire related.
It's just fire related. Okay.
But he is the number 2 hero, but he is the exact opposite of who All Might is.
Okay. I was when you say his quirk is fire, it reminds me of the ice and the fire dude. Also, one of the like a very interesting character that I want to dive into, because I feel like he had like similar to Bakugo. I feel like he has the ability, if he's not gonna stay within UA, I feel like he could become like a villain, because he has kind of a hot and cold. You have a hot and cold mentality, and he says like, I could just like kill you right now, but you need to tell me what's going on and what your plan is. You know what I mean? So
without going into it too much, if you're expecting character development, that character and Ida both get character development in season 2.
It was season 2. Okay, so I'm gonna expect character development from those two. Ida also. Okay. All right, I gotta remember all these characters, especially Ida.
You like Ida? He's
I
your
know,
favorite one.
I like Ida because I feel like when I was a kid and I wasn't good at any sport other than like getting my feet across like a field or whatever. So I felt like if my quirk was anything, it's probably running fast or like speed.
He will be virtually unrecognizable.
Ida? Yeah. Oh Jesus. Okay. So you're making me want to like. I'm gonna.
I need you to finish.
You're gonna make me want to like go like after the end of this podcast, watch every single episode, even up to season 3.
No, you should.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Well, maybe on my.
I'm saying this because season 2 is my favorite.
Okay.
Among all the seasons.
I feel like I want to say when you come back from whatever your trip is, like I want to save it so we could talk about season 2 together.
No, you know what? You should just binge watch it and then we can talk about it week by week.
Fair play. What I was thinking. So we could still talk about some expectations of Deku. What I want to see from Deku next season. I want to see more diving into like how he's gonna figure out how to control his power, because at this point it sets the stage of like, here's the rules. He can't necessarily do a lot with his power. You know what I mean? Next season, I want to probably learn a little bit more about what does that mean. Like does he have a method? Does he have like some kind of solution? Because I feel like when the character of Deku, it feels like he's such like a bookworm or somebody that really like someone that watches UFC, like a Joe Rogan character. Like he's gonna analyze every single little detail of what he does so he can be better. So I want to see a little bit more of that.
Do you feel like there's any side characters you want development from?
Besides Ida, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
I want just who's ever in Deku's kind of like court of like kind of making friends. I want to see his lady friend, Ochako.
So like specifically in the friend circle.
So specifically in the friend circle, I want to see Ribbit and like the little baby character. Froppy and
the baby character.
Yeah, the one
Mineta?
Mineta. Like I want to see
The
one that just like throws off like a bunch of like he literally just throws a bunch of boba balls into like a bunch of water. So I want to see a little bit of that. I actually just kind of want to see a lot of like the hero characters kind of dealing with their whatever the next semester or next year of UA is. I want to see more of the villain to some degree, because we only see certain villains throughout the season, and you only see like the villains like the monster in the very beginning. You kind of get to see this kind of like overarching like Justice League of villains.
I mean, it is called the League of Villains.
Like the leagues of villains. So that was kind of like more towards the end. So like something that I want to see addressed in the next season was like, what is the League of Villains? Is their purpose 100% to kill All Might? Is their purpose to destroy the whatever that power is, like to pass it on to the next person, Like if their MO is to like destroy that, like what does that mean? For Deku and All Might, So learning a little bit more of the League of Villains, what drives them. So
okay,
that'll be kind of interesting.
Alright.
I don't know if I'm missing anything else. I didn't necessarily have 100% notes prepared, but I think this whole season I just was just kind of like,
just please get through season 2.
Just get through season 2,
because like the things like season 1 is like setup, right? And then season 2 is like build up, and then it kind of keeps building up from season 2 onwards. And then it also starts going into depth about like different characters and different backstories that certain characters have, how their relationship with each other works, and I guess like how they themselves have to kind of sometimes rely on themselves in order to solve issues instead of relying on these bigger heroes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of sounds like Deathly Hallows to me.
It kind of is, but I think to an extent, Deathly Hollows is more so like a you need to come together in order to make a difference type thing, and this is more so kind of like a. I guess you can say it's the same thing. It's very similar.
It sounds like a lot of the students coming together and like
Working together.
Working together. Well, without further ado, before all this, Anyways, we're gonna talk about Violet Evergarden in the last episode.
Yay.
So, sorry.
Just give it a little, like a baby. Just.
Also, next thing you know, I'm gonna do a spit take. Okay. Okay. So, in this episode, right? This is the last episode.
Yeah.
So we're coming off of the like the cliffhanger ending of like the grenade like getting blasting like her arm, and Dietfried and like Violet has to deal with all that stuff on top of a train. Literally, in a show like this, how they're gonna end it is a battle on a train, on top of a train. It's very James Bond of them. However, the train approaches like a bridge, and the general is telling them like, we just rigged this bridge to blow up and stuff like that. I don't know if they actually had an idea, and I don't know if the general was working with somebody, but literally, if this is all that's around, like, this general is like, maybe they were supposed to come off of the train at some point, but literally they're just gonna like blow up the bridge and everybody dies. And that was the only idea that they had in their mind. And when the general literally told them like what their plan is, a stereotypical villain thing to do, tell you at the 11th hour with exposition what their plan was. Violet and Benedict goes to remove the bombs. Also, Benedict has some really good stilettos or whatever, and totally kicks one of the bombs off.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty awesome. I don't know if there's any backstory to the whole Benedict having high heels or whatever, but I thought that was a weird, interesting like a character thing that I don't think they ever addressed it.
Hey, I mean, you look good in my opinion.
Hey, if a guy can rock some high heels, you know what I mean?
Those stilettos.
Hey, yo. So Violet and Benedict goes and takes off the bombs. Violet literally does not have any arms anymore, and they all save the day. A good time had by all. The envoy saved. They get to their location. Benedict accompanies Violet, and then Catalea, she's at the signing and like helping out like the whole situation of like signing a formal peace agreement between these two kind of continents or countries. And so everybody kind of like makes their way back. So literally the first half of this episode is the wrapping up of like this whole drama on the train, and the other half is Violet trying to figure out what she's gonna write a letter. So apparently there's like this festival or like kind of like a celebration of like the ending of the war where everybody writes a letter, and then all these letters come out of these planes. They make it rain letters. Sorry. And so everybody who's in and associated with Violet is trying to figure out, what are you gonna write the letter, you know? It's kind of like a weird like wrapping up kind of like story arc of like, oh, what are you gonna do, you know what I mean? And she's still trying to figure out what to write about, who to write to, and then turns out she writes to someone that she knows now is deceased. She writes to her major, which now she understands, and the episode title is Surely Someday You'll Understand Love, right? So you got to see some background image, not some background image, some flashbacks of her time with Dietrich, the Major. Forgot the sorry, the president's name. Shoot. Oh, it starts with an H.
I
think.
don't remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but him.
Sorry, give me a second.
This is where we furiously
Look it up right now.
Well, how do you feel like
Hodgins. Yeah, I knew it started with an H. And then, so at the end, she writes a very heartfelt letter to the Major. And it was kind of like an interesting thing. It's kind of like a diary situation. Because the way that she interacts with the Major in that way is like kind of like saying, hey, I don't know if you're alive, but I'm going to give you updates. You know, kind of like a journal entry. And that's how I felt that kind of relationship was. You know, her trying to contextualize what's going on through these letters, and that's what I think these powers of her writing letters are. Is her trying to put things into like a little box, or like little boxes of understanding for herself. You know what I mean? And it's like a new state, like this stage where she feels like she's gonna continue living and doing the work as an auto memories doll. Like this is the ending of an old chapter and the beginning of a new chapter.
Right.
Which makes it a little bit hopeful for a second season. I don't want to see a second season necessarily. If my thing is like it's like the Toy Story idea, right? It's the if we're gonna make a sequel, we gotta make a story willing enough to make a sequel.
Like it needs to be qualified for it to actually exist, right?
And I don't know if I want to see a second season of this. Not to say that I'm an emotional wreck right now, which that kind of plays into it, but also these storylines felt so wrapped up that I felt like having that sort of Inception-esque ending of like, did she really find the Major? You know, sort of situation, like that was enough of an ending for me. And like the anime as a whole, I absolutely love it, and I hope to see just maybe like OVAs or like, and we're probably gonna get we're gonna probably talk about that episode during our winter break, kind of like Christmas one. But yeah, like this.
Imagine it turns out that the Major's alive in the next season. You're like, what?
But the Major's not the same, and he becomes the bad guy.
No, they turn into zombies.
Turns into zombies. And then Violet Evergarden becomes like this whole zombie Walking Dead situation. Okay.
She's like running out with a gun, and she's like,
instead of Carl, she's like, Hurricanes.
That's so wild.
Saying it with like a broken accent.
Oh my god, that would be so wild for it to turn into like a zombie flick. I could never.
Yeah, but yeah, like she wrote all her kind of emotions into this letter that talks about how she understands what that means, and she brings up all these like different examples. Some characters return. You get to see some as she's talking about how she learned to understand what love is. You get like this little montage of all these different characters like giving each other's letters or deciding to do something that they set out themselves to do. Like you get to see the playwright at the first play, like the debut of the play. You get to see like the brother going off and telling the sister like, hey, listen, I found myself a new job. You know, like I hope the best for you, and I hope you know you can do the same for me. You get to see the person that lived in the observatory, like literally traveling. So all these characters felt like were changed when Violet went from place to place, and that's what I like about the series is like each character that you get presented to has a lot of depth, and then they take whatever information that say Violet or they learn from themselves, and then they go forward from that. I mean, it's very kind of like forward deterministic sort of anime where you felt like you feel good, you feel like okay, maybe I should try to figure out what I actually like to do.
I think I like to think of the anime as kind of like in her quest to find out what love meant, she managed to kind of change the people that were around her for the better in her own search for trying to change herself. Thing, which is, I don't know, it's a feel-good anime. I like it.
And I liked how each episode is like, of course, it's like forward movement, and that's what I like about whenever there's a good story. It's like it feels like it keeps going and going. You know what I mean? Not to say if like you need your story to keep going. Like, you know, there's also some examples where some stories do tend to drag on. You know, but they drag on because of like they want to emphasize a moment, or they want to do something to get the audience away from like everything has to be action. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But from this series, I just like how everything just felt okay. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna stay on the topics that we want to talk about. We're gonna have moments where we're gonna laugh. We're gonna have moments where we're gonna cry, and literally that's 100% why I like this.
In hindsight, because this is the last episode of the show, looking back through all the episodes you've seen before, do you have a favorite one that you like among all of the ones that you saw?
I want to say my favorite one would be, the only two that comes to mind right now is the one where the mom is leaving letters for her daughter, and I think that was my favorite on an emotional level. I was just like the whole idea that if someone's about to pass away and literally leaving all these letters every year to be sent out, I was like, that's heavy. That's really heavy, you know. So that was on an emotional level. I like that one. I liked the one where the screenwriter, and we've all been, at least I hope, like on a creative level or on an education level, like we all had those situations where we get writer's block, and we have no idea how to get out of it, regardless if it's like trauma or regardless if it's like a really difficult topic or anything. Like, we've all been in a situation where we felt like, I've gotten to a point where I don't know how to move forward on a creative level or on a professional level, and that was something that I like to see, or like I sympathize with that situation. And also that was a very like emotional episode too.
It was a pretty heavy episode.
Yeah, but it felt really good. So that's the thing I like about the series too. Each episode kind of has like a very good, like, happy feeling, other than the last 3 episodes, because it was like it probably like a movie length of an episode, but they had to cut it down to like 3 specific episodes. But other than that, like, each episode, including the last one, felt like good. You know what I mean? You felt good. Like, even if you're like crying and sobbing and you're like an emotional wreck on the floor and like you're just like crying, like, you still felt good because like all these stories pertain to some aspect of love or some aspect of friendship.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is for sure one of my my favorite animes that I've seen. It's a very, I don't think it's as popular as some other animes that are out there right now in the world, but it's definitely a very good one.
I really do enjoy it, and I like Netflix has this property out for anybody to enjoy right now. Well, out in the sense that you gotta have like a Netflix account, but to be fair, you all borrow your families.
Or go onto your friends.
Go onto your friends. We know you do it.
Everybody.
There's no shame. There's no shame in admitting it. Anyway.
I think somebody, like, to some degree, every single person has kind of like stolen an account somewhere.
I feel like it's not. Yeah, I guess it's not
After
as.
HBO.
Yeah, it's not. Well, you did specifically ask, like, hey, I want to finish Westworld. Okay, here you go.
It's the cheap college strat. Share accounts.
Yeah. HBO really doesn't have a limit on that. At least I don't think so. HBO does not have a limit.
Oh.
So
Netflix.
I literally put it on, like, my niece uses it, and she's been watching a lot of Game of Thrones and a lot of detective true crime documentaries.
I might start Game of Thrones.
On HBO. You should.
This is gonna be hard.
See, if you start Game of Thrones, what show you should have me start on?
If I start Game of Thrones?
If you start Game of Thrones, what show you want me to start on?
I want you to finish My Hero.
You just want me to finish on My Hero? Okay, fair play.
What shows do I know of? I don't really watch a lot of shows anymore. Honestly.
It could be anime. It doesn't have to be shows. It could be pertaining to this podcast.
But I don't know what kind of anime. Should we do that? Switch roles? You can watch an anime and I can watch Game of Thrones and we'll talk about it.
We could. I definitely want to do like some TV movie stuff. Like a TV movie sit down situation.
We're just talking about it.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be talking.
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about anime.
But yeah, no, I definitely thought about starting Game of Thrones because everyone's been telling me to ever since 2 years ago, and I have yet to touch it. So I might do that.
The great thing about that show also, and the thing that I liked about to bridge the whole anime gap is that the thing I like about Game of Thrones also happens in Violet Evergarden, that the drama the drama takes more weight than the action. You know what I mean?
Oh, so it's kind of warranted when things happen.
Yeah. So when something like, say, a battle scene or something that someone's get murked in the end or whatever, there's some emotional stuff that comes with it. There's some baggage. There's a lot of dialogue that comes with it, and there's a lot of like literally my niece and my nephew is about. Oh, I don't want to admit that because he's watching Game of Thrones, but. You know how kids try to like age themselves up?
Yes, all the
You know
time.
what I mean? But I try to do this thing like, hey, you can watch this, but we're gonna talk about it. Like we're not. I'm not gonna leave you.
Like I need you to understand why these certain things happen.
Why these certain things happen? Why this is not reality? Like I just want to be a responsible uncle and just be like, listen, like this is just entertainment and this is not a reflection on real life.
I think that's like a very respectful way to like talk to kids about it because like. You know, eventually they're going to see those things. Like, granted, there is like a certain age limit that you're not supposed to let kids watch.
Yeah, and there's some boundaries where I'm like,
is he in his teens?
Yeah, he's in his teens.
Okay,
Yeah.
honestly, in that case, I like to think of it the same way, where it's like kids have their own opinions and beliefs and stuff like that. And if you're kind of like an adult, you can't be telling them like you have to do this, right?
And also, if you tell them no, they ultimately they're gonna
like
try
they're gonna
to
do it
Yeah.
anyways, you know. So you might as well just like educate them while letting them watch the thing.
Yeah.
So I can respect that as a thing. Sorry, I'm like looking through this so I can see what I could maybe tell you.
Yeah, and literally, so like my niece and my nephew at the time, they said the most tense scene wasn't an action scene, but it was a dialogue between two people.
Oh.
That's the thing that I liked about Violet Evergarden, and that's the thing that I still like about Game of Thrones. Although the last season has a lot of great dialogue moments, some of the action stuff feels like this show has just gone too Hollywood and just like, oh, there's all these like crazy Deus Ex Machina moments and stuff
Oh,
like
is there
that.
actually like a lot?
Towards the end, I think the problem stems from, I think the creators want to wrap up the story and want to do it in a way that like, okay, we gotta like just finish this story. All these actors are getting priced out of their roles and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of that plays into that situation. That's why this season is shorter than most seasons, and the next season is going to be shorter too. So I think they just want to wrap it up. There's some dangers behind that. I respect them and understanding like, yeah, there's a dollar amount that of what they can do with the show, you know, right now, and I could respect that. They're trying to be considerate on that level too. So yeah, I'm hopeful. Like the last season wasn't necessarily I didn't hate it, but there was so many good moments from it. You know,
Okay.
there's a great payoff moments. But anyways, do you have any questions about how I like Violet Evergarden? I felt like this series was a great series to start me off on because I was from somebody that petered off like anime from back in like high school, middle school age, and then only watch like TV and movies, and then going back into anime. It's like I felt like this anime was probably like a great way to get me back into anime. Not the case for a lot of people. Pretty sure not a lot of people want to cry in the middle of an anime session, but you know, to each their own, I suppose. But to me, I felt like this was a great introduction into anime.
I really like Violet Evergarden just from like the storytelling standpoint. It's very neat.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that kind of as like a thing that you might want to like. That was kind of criticized to some degree because it's very like. While it's grounded in a lot of like very serious topics, a lot of like those situations normally cannot end in like such a neat fashion.
Yeah.
If I like to say, but I personally liked how like story-wise everything just kind of fit in its own thing.
Yeah, I know. I could kind of see that criticism if someone were to watch this like who may identify with those kind of like post-traumatic disorders and a lot of those stuff, like it doesn't end that way, but on another note, like I feel like at least those stories are being told, you know what I mean, at least to some degree it's being talked about or being dramatized, and not to try to say like, oh, like you can be cured, but I felt like these can be ways of like mediating those situations. And I felt like doing letters, like I was kind of skeptical in the beginning. I was like, doesn't anybody read and write in this? Like, you know, like why is everybody doing letters? Why do people have to like have other people interpret their feelings? But I have like 2 episodes and I was like, okay, I could kind of suspend my disbelief, and like this is a legitimate sort of service that people can like pay into. I'm like, okay, I can buy into this whole idea that people can go to this service and say like, hey, this is how I feel, but I don't necessarily know how to put it in words. So I could kind of understand that. Yeah.
Do you feel like you like Violet's character progression in the show, or do you feel like she stayed very like stagnant about the...
I don't think for a moment that she felt necessarily stagnant. I felt there was always this forward movement for her characters. Like I said with, did I say that for My Hero? I'm misremembering like 20 minutes ago. It's weird. But it's also, I have 20-year-old Alzheimer's coming in.
We're all just struggling to remember everything.
Yeah. But anyways,
this is a really off topic thing.
Yeah.
But, oh my god, this is actually really off topic. There's like somebody was talking to me and they were like, do you feel like the reason why all of us feel like we're forgetting things so easily or time passes by really fast is because we're so oversaturated with stuff in media?
I want to say yes and no, but the thing that wants me to say no is that if you do new things, the idea, like on a psychological level, time slows down for you. Like if you're doing new and exciting things, time doesn't necessarily go fast for you. So, I don't know.
The way they put it was like, because of like the internet, a lot of things are oversaturated, and then the example they use is like the life of memes. It used to last for a lot longer, but now it's up to like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2-week meme.
Sorry, this is really off topic, but moving on.
Moving on. But I felt Violet never... like the whole buy-in of the story is her trying to figure out what love is, right? And once I submitted myself to her journey trying to figure out what that was, I was all in that point. Like I felt that her change didn't necessarily slow down. There was like an issue where she could have been that same person coming back, like say the last 3 episodes. Was that a sneeze?
No.
Okay, it was a cough. But there was like moments where she was coming back and like she had to deal with that drama of like,
and like she had her thing
Yeah.
that she was going through and stuff.
Yeah, literally.
Honestly. All that happened in the span of like all of the episodes. Actually, this is another question. Do you think you're gonna watch the extended episode that came out?
Yeah, episode 14. I'm definitely gonna watch it as like we mentioned this before. We're gonna watch it and we're gonna discuss it during our Christmas special.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it because the second season of My Hero, going back to My Hero real quick, is the very first episode is literally a recap of season 1.
I need you to go back and finish it.
Yeah, I know.
Please.
Alright, I'm whispering.
I need you to finish it
Okay.
and binge watch it.
Welcome to the ASMR portion of this podcast. Okay, God, no. I gotta be honest, literally, because I'm wearing these headphones, it just started sounding very weird, and I was just like, oh my god, Kalani. In a weird way, I was just like, oh, stop it.
Oh, no, just the cans.
Oh, God. I gotta show you that Rooster Teeth documentary about ASMR.
Why?
Because it's a really good documentary. It's only about an hour.
Okay.
Anyways. This is a long podcast of tangents today. I really hope people watches this for if anything for our tangents. Definitely watch it for our tangents.
I feel
But
like...
would you watch? Okay, sorry. Hold your thought. Keep the thought.
I don't remember it anymore.
I'm sorry. I tend to do that.
What is it?
But I want to say, would you want to see a second season of Violet Evergarden? Because at the end of this the very end of this episode, she gets contracted to do another job, and I mentioned that it's like an Inception ending where when you see the door open, you see Violet like smile, and we're kind of led to believe it could be anybody. You know what I mean? It could be some long lost relative. It could be the Major himself. But would you want to see a Violet Evergarden season 2? My opinion, I've always said it right now, that it has to be the story has to warrant a whole season of content. Like if it's a movie. Like, say if it's like a movie, like an hour and a half movie of like the aftermath on like if Major is alive or she gets to make contact with maybe some actual blood relative, like having that sort of drama happen can warrant like a movie. But would you watch a whole season if there was a season announced?
Me personally, I wouldn't know. But like, if I were to look at the series objectively, just from like an outsider standpoint, looking at like what I have in front of me, the way that the anime is structured is made so that it could have a second season.
Yeah.
Or like it could have spin-offs or so and so. Because the thing about it is that the fact is that a lot of it relies on its individual stories, right? So like, if you were to have a theoretical second season that had different stories that were different from the ones that happened in the first time, it could still work. I think significance-wise, the more important thing would then have to be the underlying story or character progression of Violet Evergarden going throughout her life. Because you can have an anime structured the exact same way where it's like its own individual story per episode and it could keep going, but if she doesn't have any character development throughout that season, then it doesn't make any more sense.
Yeah, that was something I worried about to some degree, because I like this series as a whole, that like if this season was so tied up in the idea of like what love means and how she's going to deal with figuring out that the Major's gone, and that sort of trauma that she felt, and guilt, like legitimate guilt that she feels about taking all these people's lives away. You know what I mean?
Actual genuine question.
Yeah.
Would you want him to come back?
If
Because I thought about this like in my head just like a couple seconds ago, right? But like, if he were to theoretically come back, right? Like, let's say that they have a second season, and by like around the mid or end portion of that season, you find out that he's alive. Would that then invalidate the significance of the first season, or would it be okay to have it there?
I'm of the thought that there's two things goes in my mind right now. Is that if the second season's bad, I still have the first season, because if it becomes a terrible second season, I'll just be like, well, I still have the first season.
So
that's how I feel about
like
Death
Brotherhood.
Note. Yeah, it's kind of like a Brotherhood situation, or Death Note in this case, because I felt very strongly that the first season was very good. The second season felt like they wanted to just wrap up everything.
Oh, so it was just okay.
It wasn't necessarily bad, but I felt like, oh, Elle's gone.
Like, it was just rushed.
It was rushed, and like they had to make a new adversary that was legitimately the same, and they tried to contextualize it. Oh, they're the same because they lived in the same orphanage, and so like they were making all these connections and stuff, and I was just kind of like, they just want to wrap it up. You know?
So did you feel like in Death Note, the way that second season was structured just made everything else that happened unwarranted and not deserved?
You mean like the second season just like didn't felt like it had a place?
Yeah.
To some degree, yes, but I still I enjoyed the ride because I wanted to finish it. You know, kind of like Hangover 3. I didn't necessarily wanted to watch it, but I was like, I'm already invested in watching the first two movies that I felt like I should just at least watch the third.
So just like sticking to it because you already got so far into the story.
Yeah, I felt like that. And what's some other examples? Like Breaking Bad to some degree, but not as bad as like a whole season, but like literally the episode or two before that, there was this episode called Ozymandias, right? literally one of the best episodes of television ever, like to me. You know what I mean? All the stuff that happened before in the previous seasons and all the stuff, all the drama, like literally this character like change and becomes like this complete bad guy. Like literally you see that, and it's just the whole drama of all of that. Like it was a really solid episode. But when they had to wrap it up in the next episode, it was just kind of like, okay, well, it was just kind of like wrapping it up, you know, because there's like time jumps.
Like it happened.
Yeah, it was kind of happening. Yeah, like there was these time jumps, and there was like these little illusions of like, oh, he grew a beard, but like, you know, where does this take place in this season? You know what I mean? So it wasn't necessarily bad, but I felt like in that situation, you could get a bunch of people making fan fictions of like, from that episode, he could have done this, this, and that. You know what I mean?
So from what I understand,
Yeah.
at least what I feel like you're getting at is, if he was to be brought back, it would be acceptable in that the story around him coming back made sense.
Yeah, if his story of him coming back made sense, if the second season felt like it wasn't just because people wanted a second season. That's my worry. If the second season only exists because everybody wanted a second season, then I would be worried.
You know what? You should try watching this on your own time, because it falls very neatly into that you don't know what the hell is going on type thing. Darling in the Franxx.
Darling in the Franxx?
It's a mech anime.
Okay.
It's from what I understand from a lot of people, the first half of it a lot of people loved, and then the second half had just people going like, what?
Yeah. Okay. Alright, well, I'll definitely look into that. Well, I don't know if do you have anything else that you want to address with this season? We did kind of talk a little bit about if there was a second season. Well, what else did we talk about? If the Major was alive, you know,
What would happen?
What would happen? I want to. Did I make my point clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering. I just want to make it clear that if he does come back, it has to make sense.
Like it has to be a warranted reason as to why he's alive.
Then that's my problem whenever a character comes back. You know what I mean? That I know I'm gonna bring up Ruby. There's this character that dies in the third season, but everybody has this feeling that she's gonna come back. But the problem is, if she's gonna come back and nothing's wrong with her, in some way, shape, or form, then I feel like as an audience member, it's like they're not taking death seriously that they did with that death. You know what I mean? Death carries a lot of weight. People getting injured carries a lot of weight. People who get like arms get cut off, that carries a lot of weight.
Like there's no impact to it, and it doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't make sense. I talked about this with Calvin, who's also watches Ruby. I was like saying like, listen, I know you want Pyrrha to come back, but if she comes back and not changed, and I feel like all that time that Ruby spent and John spent with dealing with her death felt like, oh, we were just gonna fix it by her just coming back. You know what I mean? I want her character to either understand she died and come back, or I want that character to be like something different, like she's coming back as like a zombie version of herself, or literally maybe a bad guy. She comes back as a bad guy, you know what I mean? And the Ruby and all the other characters have to deal with a friend going bad, you know what I mean?
This is actually a question just because you're mentioning it. And disclaimer, I've never watched Ruby before. I know of it, but I don't know anything about the storyline or anything like that.
Yeah.
Would you feel like it would be a warranted reason for her to come back if the impact was not on her, but on the characters that surrounded her? Like, for instance, you said that you would want her to potentially be like a zombie character if
it's like a zombie, or like she has to come back and acknowledge that she has
like
been gone.
theoretics, right?
Theoretics,
but like, what if she came back, didn't really acknowledge it, but the characters that were around her were kind of like they started acting differently towards her because they knew what happened. Would you be okay with that?
I think I would be okay because the characters are talking about it. Because my gripe with Game of Thrones, and I'm going from show to show to show right now, is that when Jon came back, no one, like, everybody said something, and then no one goes back to it.
So he's alive, cool.
Yeah.
I will know that he comes back.
Oh shit, sorry. Fuck!
It's okay, I heard about this.
Okay. Yeah, but that was my gripe about his death. Like, I felt like you know, when you have a character that comes back to life, you know, that's something to talk about, and that's something to mention, or that's something that people are gonna keen on to.
By the way, this is another disclaimer. I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I know.
Now I feel a little bit bad now.
No. But this is a genuine thing. But like, do you? Because the thing is about Game of Thrones, and
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but like, out of all of the characters, I've never heard of the show, right?
Mhm.
But the main two that I know is Daenerys Targaryen
Right.
and Jon Snow.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say it in this way, but do you feel like the reason why he has like, no matter what would have happened to him, he has to come back because he's kind of like the showrunner almost, right? Like any person who
Like a
hasn't
main
really.
character to some degree.
Yeah,
Like, you
because
feel
I've
like
never
you-
watched Game of Thrones, and I
Yeah.
know who he is, and
Yeah.
I know who she is, and they're the main two that I know of.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is that they didn't want to beat you over the head with it, but I feel like because the general public only knows of those two characters,
Yeah.
that those two characters in some way have to shape how the series is gonna end.
The only character that I can say that like I know of in recent time that like it had a really really big impact
Hmm.
is that one character in The Walking Dead.
One character in The Walking Dead.
He's like the only Asian character on.
Oh, you mean Glenn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he never came back either.
Yeah, never came back either.
What if he comes back as a zombie one day?
No, doubt it.
No.
Doubt it. You got beat in the head. Anyway, so. Beat in the head.
It was really bad. I saw pictures
and-
of that.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is a little bit long-winded. We did talk a little bit about TV and movies and stuff
but
like
we
that.
got
In
into a
relation,
discussion.
yeah, in relation to anime and our concerns about the second season of Violet Evergarden,
Mhm.
which I feel like if you're not thinking about, actually think about it. See if you really would want a second season of Violet Evergarden. Also,
Zombie flick.
zombie flick. That's a total genre flip. Imagine that. But have your talk about it. Have a conversation with us. I may not have the same opinions as you do, but let's have a very civil conversation about how we feel about this.
Mhm.
So until then, I hope you like, subscribe, ring that bell like always, and if you hate our guts, just let us know in the comments. All right, that's it. Goodbye.
Leave. Why are you still here?
Why are you still here? Yeah.
Get out of here.
Watch our Christmas episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.